All right. All right. Excuse me. So it looks like we are live. I think so. Yes. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Awakening Consciousness with Asher and Jesse. Glad you could join us again today. We got a great show for you. Here we go. Just do quick things. So today we're going to be talking about the result of coddling children too much, and our society seems to be churning out a ton of weak, feeble-minded, social justice warrior. Not sure what other terms to describe these people as, but other than not adjusted for adult life. And that's the result of some parenting choices and all that stuff. And speaking of parenting choices, we have it's recently admitted by the New York Times and other liberal outlets that the Hunter Biden, the crack addicted Hunter Biden laptops, turns out they were real and the emails were real. And that has some serious implications. And, Hunter Biden was involved in looks like money laundering in Ukraine. And is there anything going on in Ukraine these days that could be in some way tied to this thing? Maybe, I don't know. Wild speculation, I guess. And so that's what we're going to be talking about on the show today. Anything to add before we get started as I paste some links in?
Yeah, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. One thing we always forget to mention is that none of these shows end up really on YouTube. I think there's 3 of our probably 200 episodes that we've done or something that are still on YouTube. So get over to what you left one up. I think it was yesterday's. That's gonna get us a strike for sure, I think. But
you think yesterday?
Dude, transgender and
yeah, that's true. Yeah, we should take that down.
I don't know. Anyways, but get over to Rumble. That's where, we're on all platforms pretty much, but Rumble, definitely get over there. Join the Telegram group if you want to do that. And by the way, this is Asher Enthusiastic. So those show opens that sound like, what's that guy from what's that scientist guy,
Ben Stein. Win Ben Stein's money. Yes, that's me. Yeah, Bueller.
Right.
Bueller.
Right.
Yeah,
this is even though it sounds like that, this is just how Asher has been since I've known him when he was about 16 years old. So Asher is actually enthusiastic right now. He just doesn't change his tone of voice.
I'm a bottle of energy at the moment. Had a great night. Well, yeah. So we went to a knockoff version of a Harlem Globetrotters basketball game last night with the kids, and during the game was mostly fun, but getting to there and from there was kind of a nightmare. And it's like, why do we do nice things for our kids when this is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I've given up.
Right.
If it's within a 10-minute radius of the house, cool. If it's beyond that, I'm out.
Yeah, it was 25 minutes, and it was a tough drive there and a tough drive back. So attitudes and the rest of it. But luckily we love our kids and all that stuff.
Luckily, my whole family is a little bit afraid of my temper. So they hold it together relatively well out of fear, mostly, I think.
I think I need to do a better job of instilling fear into my because I am a lot bigger than them. We did an arm wrestle contest probably a couple of weeks ago, and all 4 of them, so it's my wife and then 3 kids, they were all 4 of them were on the other side, both hands, all that stuff. And it was like, I let them think that they had a chance for a bit, and then I just sorry about that. No can do.
So the intimidation factor there, you just gotta leverage that.
Yeah, right. The size is there. The right. And I can, I guess, be a little bit stoic at times, not showing a whole lot of emotion, but
namely.
Yeah, possibly. And so if I just let loose a couple times, maybe that'll instill a little bit of fear in the rest of them. So obviously we're just joking. having a good time.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's go to.
I think this show so far is definitely approved for YouTube. Like they're like, wait, fear? Did somebody say you're going to instill fear in other people?
Right.
I think we may get promoted now.
Right. Yeah. We're gonna. Right. Let's. Yeah.
We're gonna be popping up in people's suggested videos now.
Well, yeah, we're gonna instill fear. Yes, so that will, we'll be trending now, I guess.
Right.
So hey,
guys, we love transgenders and we're instilling fear. YouTube.
Oh yeah, they're the best, absolute best. So we had one win a swimming meet yesterday. So what's his name? I can't remember his first name,
maybe Leah or something.
Yeah, he goes by Leah these days, and I think everything's still intact as far as I know. But he just identifies as a man, and so he won the swimming competition. And
as a woman, yeah, I mean he's a big dude.
Yeah, no, yeah, he
looks to be about like maybe 6'3", 6'4", fit.
Yeah, right.
He crushed him.
Yeah. Right. And I think the Olympic silver medalist finished on the women's side. The Olympic silver medalist finished second or third, and he a below average. I mean, he's still a good swimmer compared to most men, but he's still, probably below average in the men's division, switches over to the female division and then dominates. And who could have predicted that?
Well, that's because you're sexist, but it's like it's hard to even understand what sexist means anymore because there's no sexes. So if you're saying that a biological male competing as a female is going to win, in the old paradigm, that would be sexist. The feminists would be upset. But in the new paradigm, you have to pretend it's a woman. So I guess you can't be being sexist anymore because there are no sexes. So I guess you're just like, transphobic or something. But I don't know that is sexist still a thing, or did we move on from that?
Well, it depends on the topic. So if you're talking about the mythical wage gap, then it becomes a thing.
Then but there's sexist again.
Right. Yeah, obviously. So when it's convenient, then there are. When it's inconvenient, then we have to do away with that. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing to navigate. It's like, when do I recognize that there's genders, and when do I recognize that there's 911 different genders? So it depends on if it's beneficial for the female imperative on whether or not there are 911 genders or just 2. So depending on which one benefits the female most, that's the one you go with. And so that's how you decide.
It's almost like there's an agenda at play to get you to completely give up your logical mind and just go along with whatever they're throwing at you. It's almost like they're trying to confuse you. And if they can get that sort of psychological disconnect between you and reality, or your mind and logic, or your mind and thinking, or you and thinking, it's almost like they got you. And so, so I just want to say I'm open to instructions as to when there are genders and when there are not. If there's a hotline, or someone could just let me know when I'm talking, give me a little cue, like, no, now there's genders, now there is not. That would be great. And I'll follow it because, I believe the television, and I just want to say I stand with Ukraine.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you get your rainbow shaded Ukraine flag out there. Doesn't have, well, yeah, I was talking to a woman the other day, very smart, very intelligent, accomplished in her career, very nice also. And somehow the topic got turned to parenting and career and children and that kind of stuff. And I told the story about how, when I was starting the businesses, it wasn't to the point where I could support a family on that. And so my wife had to work. And during the time that my wife worked, I would have to raise my daughter. And so I could during the days, during the weekdays, I could choose one of two things. I could either pay attention to my daughter and take her to the park, play with her, be outside, do whatever you might think a good dad would do during those times, or I could work on the business. And so you can't actually physically do both at the same time. So if I had to get some work done or be on a call or a meeting or something like that, I would turn the screen on, turn the TV on or something like that to distract her so that I could get some work done. In those times, I'm not being a good dad. Like distracting them with Mickey Mouse or whatever is not being a good dad. I don't care what you say about it. And then during the times when I'm taking her to the park or spending time with her, focus my energy and attention on her, yeah, I could be a good dad in that time, but I'm not working on the business. And so one has to suffer. There's just no way around that. And this was in the context of sort of like a job interview. And I think judging by when she graduated college, I'm guessing she's in her mid to late 30s. And she told me she had never heard anyone say that. She had never heard a man say that you couldn't be simultaneously a good dad and a good business person at the same time, because you literally can't do both things at the same time, especially with young children. They need attention, they need focus, and they're not going to just do their own thing at that age. And so she had never heard anyone say that. And I said, well, of course not. Like, a man cannot say that in society these days. They'll get canceled, they'll get shouted down, they'll get ridiculed, they'll get a whole lot of things, and you just can't say that, because how dare you say that a woman can't be everything, it can't be everything all at the same time. And I as I just finished saying that, I couldn't do it in my life. So if I can say that about my life, why can't I apply that principle to life in general, which happens to include women? And so it's like, she had never heard that, and it made total sense to her. And she was like, oh, wow, that's actually really true. That's a good point. I'd never heard that. And it just goes to show the lies and manipulation and the coddling and fabrication of reality that people are subjected to these days. So just thought I'd share that. While we're on the subject of children and all that stuff, so let's go to that story first.
And it's just, it's interesting too, just in that context, right? Like, and you did point this out, but yeah, I mean, a woman can't do that either, right? And that's sort of the problem. And yeah, and the powers that be would be very happy for Disney to raise your children for, in combination with a nanny, maybe, right? Or, some sort of situation like that where your kids are just not getting what they need from you. Like, your kids need mom particularly, and then they need dad to be present when he's there, right? Like you have, you need to be present with your kids when you're there. Dad's got to go work. Of course, dad's got to make a living. Dad's got to run a business. Dad's got to be, I know, buddy, I'm recording the show. Give me 1 minute. Okay. And, can you give me 1 minute? All right. So
wait, Jesse, you can't do both these things at the same time.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, right, my wife just left, so she just got in the car, had to run to go get some groceries. We do have someone who helps us cook and clean and watches him occasionally. But I mean, here I am in that exact situation. It's very timely. Give me 1 second here.
Right, there you go. So right, proven right yet again. Gee, what do you know? All right, so let's go to this story. I'm going to share my screen. Share sound also. All right. So, Yale law students disrupt bipartisan free speech panel, trigger police escort. So, Yale, Ivy League school, supposedly one of the top institutions for higher education in this country. We've had I don't know how many presidents, but I'm sure more than a handful of presidents go through Yale, Skull and Bones, all that stuff. We're not going to talk about that in this case, but yeah, Yale is supposedly one of the best institutions of higher learning out there. And so what happened at Yale Law School? So these are supposedly the future leaders of industry, of politics, and in this case law. And so what's going on here? So more than 100 woke Yale law students disrupted a bipartisan panel on civil liberties by trying to shout down and intimidate the speakers, who had to be escorted out of the building by police, according to reports. The panel hosted by the Federalist Society featured Kristen Wagner, a controversial anti-LGBTQ speaker with the Conservative Alliance Defending Freedom, and Monica Miller, an associate at the Progressive American Humanist Association, the Washington Free Beacon reported. The discussion on March 10th was held in hopes of showing how a liberal atheist and a conservative Christian could agree on free speech issues, a member of the Federalist Society told the news outlets. The two speakers reportedly discussed the recent U.S. Supreme Court case. I'm not going to be able to pronounce those names. U versus P, I'm just going to say that, which dealt with freedom of religion and free speech on college campuses. It was pretty much the most innocuous thing you could talk about, the member of the Organization of Conservatives and Libertarians told the Free Beacon. But about 120 students showed up to protest the event, where they outnumbered the audience members and held signs attacking the Alliance Defending Freedom, which won several Supreme Court cases establishing religious exemptions from civil rights laws. So let's take a look at the future leaders of our society. How did they act?
And I corrected him.
Can I ask you all, as you know, Yale has a policy of freedom of speech, and that guys, come on, grow up.
We told you, Monica Miller, this is what it would be. Will those trans kids grow up?
You guys,
This is
I
free
look
speech.
forward to hearing
This
from
is
you
free
when we
speech.
get to question and answer.
Free speech is
Why
what
are
you're allowed
allowed
to
to
be.
talk here and
No, you're disrupting the free speech.
We're
right?
not. You're disrupting us.
So you're disrupting us by talking about free speech issues. You are disrupting us, they said. I also heard someone say, are the trans kids going to grow up? And we just talked about like what happens with a trans person winning a swim meet or winning a college championship, and how devastated some of the other participants in the race were. They didn't get to win because they had a man competing against them. And so, obviously men are stronger physically and in athletic competitions have an unfair advantage over women. And that's just biology. Like, you can take it up with the creator about that, but that's just the way it is. And so saying that, just the fact that I said that, you could get canceled, you could get deplatformed. If I was working at a job, if I had a boss, they could come after me and try to get me fired. And so you literally can't say these things. And because people can't say these things, you have this situation where someone who in her mid to late 30s doesn't know that you can't be a great parent and a great stay-at-home parent and a business person, or work full-time and be totally dedicated to both at the same time. It just doesn't work like that. And so I think this type of attitude where you can't listen to a free speech debate without getting offended and triggered and the rest of it is the result of decades of a failed parenting model of coddling and participation trophies and the rest of that. So I'll let you speak to that, and then I'll tell another story from my own life on kind of differences that I'm doing.
Yeah. Another piece of that too is schools only caring about grades and academic achievements and not worrying about behavior, right? Behavior is sort of, being mature, being able to process emotions, being able to, sort of guide your own behavior is not part of the education process anymore at all for a very long time. The other thing that, that really jumps out at me here is, hey buddy, stop. Okay. The other thing that really jumps out at me here is they always use the youth, right? If you look at the great atrocities that have happened in the world, they're usually championed by the state, the state indoctrinated youth, right? So if you're looking at, whether it's what went on in the Soviet Union, whether, in Russia, whether what went on in China, what went on in Chile, what went on in, all kinds of places, it was very often the youth, I'm even thinking of places in Africa, places in Asia where, you had genocide and slaughter and all these kinds of things. It was always the youth that were the most fervent, the most excited. And that's because kids are impressionable, right? And so if you look at what's gone on here in the United States, right, the land of the free, we didn't grow up with this, right? Me and you, we're not old. Well, a little bit, but I'm 39. I think you're a year or two younger. So we didn't grow up with this crazy indoctrination about you have to have certain set of beliefs or you're not allowed to speak or you're a bad person or these kinds of things. We grew up being taught land of the free, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, all these kinds of things. And we're at the point in the United States where that's just literally no longer a thing, right? The youth don't believe in that anymore, right? The youth believe in going along with what they believe, or you're a Nazi. That's the paradigm now. Not knowing that, of course, their behavior is quite literally what the Nazis were doing. So yeah, it's the irony of a free speech rally being interrupted, by people who don't want to allow for that conversation to happen, of course, is not lost on me either. And it's a great insight into the state of the culture in the United States. And, again, looking at history, what comes next is very ugly in societies that go down this road, right? We have many, many, many examples when sort of, communist ideology takes root in the youth. The next thing that comes is slaughter over and over and over and over again. And these people may not know they're communists, right? They use a different word now, but they are communists. These people are communists. Those are their beliefs. It's interesting too. It sort of ties in, there's this whole story. And again, do I know the accuracy of all this stuff? Absolutely not. But there's this whole, sort of story going on, this idea going on, right? That, well, okay, let's go back to World War II, the Nazis. We have Operation Paperclip, right, where the Nazis are sort of the top level Nazis, scientists and so forth, are brought over to the United States and other places. They're basically relocated. They become the who's who of NASA. They become the who's who of medicine, of science in the United States. So we have that going on. Then we have this whole sort of bioweapons lab story in Ukraine, and then we have this whole Nazi story in Ukraine as well. And it really, it's kind of interesting to me. It's sort of, it ties into that because the way that the indoctrination and the brainwashing that these kids, are college kids, they're not kids anymore, these young adults which does not fit, right? That word does not fit for them. But these young adults who are protesting and who are on college campuses and, shouting you down on Facebook and whatever else they're doing. The people who have indoctrinated them into that, it's the same ideology. And the people we're supporting in Ukraine, right? Same ideology. So it hasn't changed much. That paradigm hasn't changed much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you made great points on the, getting the youth involved. And it's like they are so encouraged by their professors, by social media, by corporations to do the bidding of those professors and the woke corporations and the rest of it, that they can, in a lot of cases, end up ruining their lives because they make a stupid decision based on, emotion, and not being able to, take a step back and sort of think through the broader ramifications of what they're doing. And the behavior is also getting more extreme, and it can also be dialed up or down depending on what the needs are. So if you have a big orange Nazi in the White House, you can activate your what's the right term? You can activate these people to essentially go burn down a city or go destroy something, or take it out on a rival politician or something like that, where it's not hard to get these impressionable, emotional, not people who don't necessarily think through the long-term ramifications of their actions into doing something that will really hurt them. And so you also made a great point of how the actions they're taking are literally what they say they're fighting against. So they're fighting against fascism, yet they are acting in a fascistic way where they're supporting the corporations and the governments that are working together in a way to, censor people or shut people down, or enact violence in many cases. And so, yeah, this does not lead to a good place. And so, I think it comes from I think the youth being so weak has a lot of causes to that, namely, the parenting that's gone on over the last, several decades. Number one, you have a lot of single mother households. I think it's 40% of children are born out of wedlock these days, something like over 40%, 40, 42. And that gets up to like 75, 77 in the Black community. 75 to almost 80% of the Black children are born out of wedlock. And so, you don't have a male role model in the house, and the children suffer. And these numbers have steadily increased over time. And so, that's one thing. Another thing is if you do have two-parent household, in many cases, both parents have to work because we've added women to the workforce, which increases the size of the labor pool, which depresses the wages. I mean, this is basic economics. If you have more supply of workers, the price of the labor goes down. People are making less money. Add to that, the taxes have gone up in the last few decades. So you have less money to support a family, and therefore requiring both parents to work. If you have both parents, children are then being raised more and more outside the home, outside of the parents. So they're either being raised by the state with public school and after school activities, or they're being raised in daycare, or not by the parents. And so that's not a good model. And then you have what I would call the participation trophy, society, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So like
itis.
Right. So everyone gets a trophy. Everyone is a winner. Everyone is special. Everyone is this. And that instills just such an entitlement mindset into people. And I would argue that that's one of the biggest issues today, is just the entitlement that people have. And I want to tell a story about in my own life. Like, my daughter, who is 7, she played basketball for the first time, and I played basketball a lot when I was younger, and so I know a lot about basketball. And I coached her, so I was coaching her team, and we had fun, and I was proud of her for doing something that's it was the first time being on a team, first time playing a sport, first time doing a lot of things. And so I was proud of her for taking that initiative and saying that she wanted to join a team. And she, she wasn't very good, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine. So we played games. They didn't really keep score in the game, so nobody won or lost, which is another thing. Like, the kids wanted to know who won, and so, I don't know who won because we didn't keep score.
I would have been that coach having my wife or something keep score.
Right.
guys, time out. We're down 2, guys.
Right. And so, so that's not the greatest, but okay, at least she's playing and that's kind of stuff. But then at the end of the season, they gave everyone a trophy, or in this case, a medal. And so what that means is, everyone is the same and everyone's a winner, and regardless of how you actually did during the year. And I had been planning on having a discussion with my daughter, either later that day after we got the trophy or the next day. And I was really proud of her because she asked me later that day, she said, "Did I deserve this?" And that was my that was a cue to have that conversation at the time. And so what we basically talked about was how we didn't do anything to win this trophy. We didn't keep score. We weren't necessarily the best player on the team. We weren't the best player in the league. We weren't the best team in the league. And so everyone got the same thing. And so if everyone gets it, is it actually special? Is this something that we actually earned rather than just were given because we showed up? And she actually got it. And, so I sat her down, I showed her some of my trophies, that I actually won, because back in my day, they didn't give out trophies unless you actually won something. And so, we had a discussion, and she actually got it. She was like, "You know what? Yeah, it's not special. I had fun playing. I learned, I had fun. I want to do it again, but this was not special." And now her trophy is in a box in the storage room, and it's not a thing for her. And I was more proud of her for that, for understanding what I was talking about with the entitlement that comes along with everyone getting a trophy, than I was with her, actually getting the trophy. And so that's just a little story, as to say, the other thing I want to say is, like, she's not special. Like, she's special to me. She's special to my wife. She's special to her brother. She's special to some people in her life, but she's not special to the world. She doesn't have and she might develop a skill or a talent or something that she can contribute to the world that makes her special. But she's a 7-year-old kid. She's having fun. She's doing great. She's a very nice girl. She's very nice to be around. She's very loving. She's caring. All that stuff is good, but that doesn't make her special to the world. She's special to me. She's special to my wife. She's special to certain people, but that doesn't make her this, thing that we need to praise to the end of the world and back. And so it's like, removing that sense of entitlement from children, I think, is important. So anyways, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's a great anecdote. It's a great story. And I think there is a fine line there, right? Because it's like, I do think we're all special, right, to God, in a certain way, in the sense that, we have this incredible uniqueness, each of us, and we all have our talents, and we all have our life path and what we're there for. And that should be honored, right? So like, every human should be special. I hesitate to use that word, but in the sense of not treated badly, not damaged, not traumatized, right? Not all these kinds of things, in order to express themselves in a good way, through their life on earth. But special in comparison, no, fuck no, right? That's where the problem comes in. And that's, I think, the point you're making. Yeah. And right. And that I agree with completely. I mean, I go back to a couple of things, right? Number one, if we go back to tribal days, men particularly were tested, right? Women's test was childbearing, right? And that sort of thing. Men were tested physically, courage, strength, blah, 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 right? These things were tested. They had to hunt. They had to go out. In some cultures, they had, rites of passage, right? Somewhere around puberty. They had, potentially they're fighting, they're fighting in various ways. Obviously there's games and competition that's happening. And I grew up like that, right? Not in the tribe, not with, not as far as war or those sorts of things. And in fact, not that I encourage war at all, but the importance of testing yourself as a male, understanding your limits, pushing through what you thought were your limits, getting to know yourself because you have experienced your character when it's on the line, when you're up against it, right? These things are extremely important to male development. Without it, you don't have the male protector in society. And without that, we have what we have today. And so, when I grew up, this still took place, right? So me and my friends, and of course, males do this just naturally, right? If you watch men, boys, kids, young adults, any age, males are constantly sparring with each other in one form or another. It could be verbal sparring, right? They're sort of fucking with each other and seeing who's got the best sort of philosophy or thing to say, or the best joke, or the best this or the best that, right? Verbal sparring. There's, when they're younger, physical sparring happens all the time, right? The two boys are sitting there fighting over the toy, right? They're testing their physical strength. They're seeing who's stronger, who's got, who can pull it, who can get the toy, right? Then later it's, it's sports and it's other things. And it's war, right? And traditionally men go to war, not women, right? I know we're working on that, but, but so men test themselves. They test their limits, males. They do that because they need it. If you don't develop those skills as a male, you're fucked, right? Like if you don't develop the skills, the toughness, the mental toughness, physical toughness, whatever it is, the ability to persevere, the ability to overcome, the ability to, deal with obstacles and overcome, the ability to lose and recalibrate and come back for more, right? All these kinds of things. If you don't develop those as a male, you're useless. You're useless. You're a useless male. You're exactly what these guys are now, right? You don't know how to do anything. You have no skills or talent. You're emotionally weak. You can't be a father. You can't be a husband. I hope you're not raising a family, because that's going to look very bad. You're useless to your employer because you're not tough. You can't get it done when the job's on the line. Running a business, that's hilarious. Like there's not any possibility, you're running a business. You can't run anything. You're upset because you have to get up in the morning and do stuff, right? So and then you go, but you're ready to protest, you're ready to rally, you're ready to go shout down the free speech convention, you're ready to scream at people and call them Nazis. And of course you are, because you're hurt inside, right? You're damaged. Like you never could express yourself. And so, yeah, you feel, like the victim. Of course you do. And you are, in a certain way. Like society didn't do justice by you. Like nobody took you by nobody went like this and helped you build that fortitude because of the fucking participation trophies, right? And so, a quick anecdote from my own life, right? So we grew up as boys normally grow up, right? Riding I grew up in pretty rural southern Vermont, riding in pickup trucks, and we used to hitchhike when I was a kid, we were on our own, and I'd hop in my bike and I'd go meet my friends at very young ages. My parents didn't know where I was, didn't care where I was, and we were fishing and we were playing sports and we were fighting and we were doing all the stuff that kids do, and getting in trouble and doing the whole thing. And I'm not saying, by the way, all of that stuff is perfectly healthy, right? Our society is screwed up in all kinds of ways, but we grew up in that sort of way, and sports were serious, at a very early age. When we went to compete in organized sports or not organized sports, just pick up basketball, pick up football, touch football, whatever it was, we competed with one another. Our coaches gave a shit. We had coaches in our league that would lose it, right? They were like unstable, but that's how much they cared. Like this was, and nobody was upset about that. Nobody was like, was like, what's wrong with this guy? Maybe some of them should have toned it down a little bit again, but like nobody was upset that the coach was trying to win. Of course the coach is trying to win. It's an athletic competition, right? So we grew up that way. We come from the same era. So we grew up that way. When I think it was high school. I want to say it was high school. It's possibly it was a year or two after high school, but I think it was high school. I went back to the area that I grew up in. I mean, I used to go all the time. My father still lived there. So I'd go back to the area I grew up in. And once or twice, I passed the school sports fields next to the school where I used to play baseball and Little League and all that sort of stuff. And I saw the kids out there playing. And so I stopped the car and pulled in, and I'm like, this brings back all these great memories. And, oh man, this is amazing. And the leagues when we were a kid were fantastic. Like, if you sucked, you didn't play. And if you were, and the guys that were playing were pretty good. And like, it was a blast. Right. And so I go and I pull up and I go over and I want to watch a little bit. And they're not playing anymore. As exactly as you said, nobody's keeping score. It's boys and girls together. Nobody can strike out. They give them like unlimited pitches. There's no such thing as strikeouts. There's no such thing as anything. Like it's like practice basically, but I don't know what the goal is of practice. It's not to get better. It's just like to be out there or something. I don't know. And so I'm sitting there watching. And I had recognized a person or two, who was there, and I kind of struck up a conversation. I'm like, is this just how they do this now? Like, what is this? I don't understand. Is this like a scrimmage or like what's happening? And they're like, no, like, this is a game. And I'm like, they weren't keeping score. I mean, they weren't playing. There was nothing happening. Like there was just uncoordinated kids who were not paying attention or interested in the game, in the sport that they were supposedly playing. Parents sitting around sort of talking about other things, doing whatever they were doing. I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't playing. And I'm just telling you, if I had that when I was a kid, like if that had been the sports that were available to me when I was a kid, I would suck right now as a human. Like that was the one thing for me. Everybody's different, but that was the one thing that I had growing up that gave me, all the life lessons and skills and so on and so forth that I needed. And, it's a big piece and it's on purpose, it's intentional. And the results again are what we're looking at now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing because, boys these days, and Rollo Tomassi says this all the time. He says, boys are raised as defective girls. So, it's sit still, pay attention, stop acting out, no fighting, no roughhousing, no wrestling, all the things that you said that help a boy become a man. Right. And so they are essentially taken away from us, and we're supposed to sit still and pay attention and learn the way that a girl learns. And that doesn't work. And not only does it not work in terms of, education, but it doesn't work in terms of your development as a person, as a boy turning into a man. And so, now, it's, now a lot of women are saying, hey, what happened? Where did all the good men go? Well, they either were there when you were in your early 20s, or they just don't exist because men don't exist anymore. Men are weak, pathetic, soy ingesting, feminists, female allies. That's what they call them. You're not a man, you're an ally. And so that's the world that we're living in these days. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way that we're raising the children. And it's not going to go back. It can only go forward in terms of recognizing where we are and where we need to go, because the old adage is strong men make good times make weak men make hard times, and hard times make strong men. And I think that's that's where we're headed. We're sort of at the tail end of the good times and about to hit some not so good times. And we've covered like what we mean by not good times, supply chain issues, rising inflation, the whole lot. We don't need to get into it, in too detail now, but I think that's what you're going to see coming up is the good times are over, hard times are coming, and we'll see some strong men forged in this battle. So I think you have to go unless I'm mistaken. And so I think we can call it there. We didn't get into the Hunter Biden stuff, but we'll probably get to that maybe on Monday or sometime next week. Do you have any last words? Or you just
My son says no, but no, I gotta run. I gotta run. So yeah, it was good chat. Enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back, I believe, on Monday. Although, Asher, I got to change the time on that. So I'll shoot you a text.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, please like, share, subscribe, especially over on Rumble. I hear our brand new tube is getting redone. So the videos are going to be up there as well. Join the Telegram group. And that's a good way to interact with us. Shoot us some stories, ask us questions, or maybe suggest topics that you want us to cover. And so, yeah, have a good weekend, everyone.